Welcome back to another episode of Living LFTD with Brenton Ross. I just leaned on that. I don't know if the camera picks that up, so we're going to try to avoid leaning on that as much as we can, but that's okay. Fell on my mountain bike last night, but we're going to be all right. I've been looking forward to this. I've been texting you about this for a long time.
I've been hiding from you.
Yes, you have. It's finally happening.
Another day, another week.
This is my good friend, David Kessler. You're one of the best men I know. And I cherish our friendship greatly. Before we get into the serious, sappy shit, though, we're going to have a little fun with this. We're going to have a little icebreaker on mixing it. And here's how it's going to work, okay? We'll get to the serious stuff, don't worry. But first, we're going to have a few laughs here. So, this is going to be the rule. We're going to go back and forth.
Okay.
The first one that laughs loses, and it's over. So, you can say whatever you want. You can ask me a question. You can make a statement. You can make fun, whatever you want. But you go, I go. You go, I go. First one that breaks loses. All right, I'll go first. You know your buddy Ben?
Yes.
The lawyer one. You know Mr. Overmore?
Who?
Your buddy Ben, the lawyer. Mr. Overmore.
Folkman.
Oh, I thought his last name was Overmore.
There you go. See what you learned? You don't retain.
Your turn.
So why would I be laughing at knowing him?
What would be his first and last name together then?
Ben Folkman.
But if his last name was Overmore?
Over who?
Overmore.
Well, I'm over you.
Okay, your turn.
Well, I thought I was. See, you're smiling.
Oh, that was it? I didn't laugh. Okay.
No, well, you almost
We hit
did.
your chest pretty hard today, didn't we?
We did.
Feel like you got a pretty good pump?
Felt great.
Next.
Do I look good?
You do. Next time you and your wife get in an argument, you should take your shirt off.
And so she can tell me how big my chest is?
It's a booby trap.
Ooh, not bad. Well, I didn't want to be any bigger than her, so I really shouldn't take my shirt off. I guess I shouldn't say that, should I? Are you laughing? Yes, you are.
Call me my mustache.
Yeah, right.
Are you into innies or outies? I'm talking belly buttons.
As you're twisting your...
Yeah.
Hey, I just laugh, man. Life is about laughing, you know? It's not about challenging who can do it better. I know I can do it better. I have a few more years' experience.
Well, I got to give you props for is I was prepped and you weren't, though.
That is true.
So.
But if you go back to our earlier workout, I had you going pretty
Yeah, me
well.
going pretty good.
Yeah, I know how.
I have one more here.
Okay, you can try.
What's made of leather and sounds like a sneeze?
I don't know.
A shoe.
That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you need to go on to the other things.
Okay, let's go ahead and
Talk about your philosophy
All right,
of
enough
working out.
horseplay, David. Enough horseplay.
No, it's always horseplay.
Let's
you
get
weave
serious.
the work into the horseplay.
Let's get serious.
Okay.
Do you think the Super Bowl was fixed?
Now you got me laughing. We're going to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. Mr. Eagles over there.
Because I'm an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
And they were finally, I have to say, they were respected. They usually let me down, my Eagles, but they didn't. So I just wanted you to know how it feels to have a team that you really count on just let you down.
Did you really enjoy watching that much of a bloodbath, though? Like, I want to, as a competitor in yours, I want to beat someone on their good day. Like, I got this buddy, shout out Wes. He's incredible at golf, and I've only beat him one time, and it was on the worst day he'd ever have, and I still only beat him by one stroke, and that doesn't matter. Like, I bring it up, and I always will, but it's just not the same as when you beat someone on their best day. And I don't know what we brought that day, that evening, but it wasn't anything good.
Well, I have to say that, number one, it was one of their good days. And the problem was they just played like shit. And so you make the excuse that it wasn't one of their good days so that you can then rationalize why they did
No,
so
it's
poorly.
no excuse. You killed us.
No.
You killed us. I just would have liked to see a good game.
It was all about the attitude.
Yeah.
They lost the game in their attitude, didn't they? And you saw it on their faces.
Pat was
you saw it on their
flustered.
reactions.
Yeah. Pat was flustered. You guys kept sacking him back-to-back downs.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Right.
And he's just, I don't know. He just started making some rush decisions. And it's easy to sit here on the sideline and critique someone that's in the game having to make a split-second decision and say, how could you throw that pass when most people couldn't even make that pass if they were wide open, let's be honest. But it was hard to watch. It was hard. I didn't even watch the very end. I think I'd already even sent it. I'm sure you enjoyed every minute of that.
With that Carvel cookie, cake, it was good. Or not the cookie cake, the ice cream cake.
I'm sure
was
you
good.
enjoyed it. I'm sure you enjoyed it.
Even though I almost killed a dog.
Well, I am privileged to know your story. And it's a great one that is still ongoing. And I believe it just keeps even getting greater as I get to know you. And if you don't mind, I'd love to talk about that a little bit and start with when David was little David. What was little David like as a boy?
An insecure, overweight kid.
The haircut was nice, though.
Do you like the haircut?
Yeah. You had that little pencil stash with the... Wait, that's what I have right now.
Yeah, but you can rock it, and I couldn't.
You got to bring it back, baby. At least that little pencil stash. Yeah, go on. That was the Tickler 9000.
It was pretty thick. I was thinking, but the gray was, it'll be different. But it was, never felt comfortable in my own shell. And so that was rough. But
And that was in Philly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grew up in Philly. And still went to school with all the same people that I grew up with, all from first grade to 12th grade, great friends, but just never felt like I found my place in life. Ended up going to college. I was local to Philadelphia. My family didn't have any money, so there was no choice. You stayed at home, you went to college, went to Temple University.
It's like when I said to Mitch, you didn't get to take a year to go experience whatever they do, where they go travel Europe for a year.
I was lucky I had a room to sleep in. And when you think about it now, the room was like 9 by 9. It was, in somebody's closet now. But times are different. So college tuition was $500 a semester.
Wow. Wow.
You're supposed to say you are freaking old, but isn't that crazy? And so to me, college was an extension of high school.
Really?
Yeah, because you
was
really
it
didn't
a lot of the
change
same
anything.
people?
A lot of people, because where I lived, nobody really had a lot of money, so most people stayed at home.
Yeah.
So your friends from high school were still your college friends, and so you still hung out with them. You didn't have the dorm experiences. There's no beer pong.
See, that was the game changer for me. When I left the little tiny high school my parents sent me to, I went to ASU. I went from having, I don't even remember, it was like 50 or 60 people in my graduating class to then stepping into classes that I had 8 to 1,200 people in just one lecture hall. Wow. And I loved it. It was exactly what I was looking for. I wanted something completely different. I wanted a fresh start. And I was very thankful to be able to do that. So for you, as you said, it was kind of an extension. So were you kind of just like really wanting to get past that period, or did you enjoy college?
Well, it's funny. I don't know. No, but it's true. I think it was just you needed to get through the 4 years because I was focused on going on with my life. And so it wasn't that important. And I think I did lose a lot and missed a lot because I didn't go away. But you don't know what you missed. And so for me, that was the norm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I then went and I ended up going and becoming an accountant because my mother told me that you either go to college to become an accountant or a doctor, because she was tired of having my father, who was a door-to-door salesman, always out of work.
Sure.
So when you graduated college, you needed to have that degree that allowed you to get something.
She wanted security.
I didn't either,
boy.
but yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then when did you make your pivot? How did that transpire?
Well, what happened was I got a position in accounting. I worked for about 3 months or so and realized, what the hell was I doing behind a desk working on people's numbers when I needed to be out? And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so that really began my journey as to where I wanted to be, how I wanted to do things. And so I left there and I went to work for my father because he was finally starting to make some money. Worst decision in my life, but no, not really.
What was your self-confidence like at this point? About the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the same. The only good part was I met this girl, and that helped build my confidence. Yeah, special girl. Special girl that ended up becoming my wife. And so it's a long journey. We'll be married 45 years in May. And I think that really began to, first of all, you have a reason to move and a reason to grow and a reason to be. And you had somebody that believed in you. And that was really important, which you didn't realize. But in fact, I went to work with my father, and my father was, we're all so aware of management style and power of positive thinking and how you deal with your team. There was none of that. It was all management by intimidation, right? Well, you were no good motherfucker because you made one mistake, or or they didn't do it the way the person wanted you to, and all of a sudden, that's the way you ran a business. And I learned, as much as I love my father, who I didn't want to be and what I didn't want to do. And I really disliked his management style, but it was successful because people gravitated to him because he was very strong. So I learned a lot from him. And through the years, even as a kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, I used to go in to work with him and learn. And being a guy that just had to scrape the sidewalks, you learned a lot. Yeah. You learned about how you really work hard. You don't close up your place because it's 5 o'clock at night, and you just keep doing it until you have enough money to make the mortgage payment. And that's really what I learned. And I watched them avoid people collecting bills, phone calls, and you don't really realize it as a kid, but you do realize it as you get older, that you lived through that. And so a lot of the things and who you are is molded by your past and your childhood. And so my wife and I am being very naive and ignorant. My wife said, just leave your father. You can go find something else. And we all know when you work for your family, you're always a little bit better off with, how much you make and what your perks are and things like that. Yeah. And one day I just walked in and I said, listen, I'm out of here. And I don't know what made me do it or gave me the nerve to do it, but it was the best move I ever made in my life. Because all of a sudden you begin to develop as a person. And it was probably the first time, talking about the insecurity that gives you more security. First of all, you've got this woman there, or this person that believes in you, and you want to do it for her and for you, so that you have more of a reason to do it.
You've said that twice now, and I just want to really hit home on how much of a blessing that is, because that's not always the case. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys that I've met, and if you ask them if they felt like their wife, or the other way around, if they thought their husband believed in them, they wouldn't be able to truthfully say yes. And it breaks my heart, because when you're one and you're on the same team, like, it's already hard enough, but then with your significant other doubting you or even taking your legs out and criticizing you, it's just that much harder. And what a blessing to have the woman you do.
Yeah, I believe that.
Absolutely. I know
she's a tough cookie, isn't she?
Yeah,
which I love.
Privilege of meeting her, and she's amazing. Amazing. So what did your dad do? How did he react when you walked in and gave him that? I'm sure you rehearsed it a few times. What you were going to
I don't know.
Really?
I wasn't that sophisticated to do it. I think I just walked in and went, holy shit, here I go. And I think he tried to persuade me to stay.
Sure.
I'm doing this for you. But I knew that he was never going to step aside. And I was always going to be the kid.
Yeah.
And I learned that I couldn't be that kid. I needed to be me. I needed to grow. I didn't know what I had in me, but I realized that this wasn't the right thing.
Yeah.
I think that, and I do a lot of mentoring, as you know, of young kids. And some of the things I say to them is, I progressed in life just because life evolves. And every change, I always say, presents an opportunity. You may not realize it, but that's what it does. It creates another avenue, or it closes another road, and you're forced to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so he wanted me to stay, and he said to me, of course, the person that has power, what does he say? Well, if you're not here, I'm just going to have to close down this business and do, whatever. And I said,
so he tried to put that on you.
Oh, yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. And which was fine, because I was forced to make the decision.
Yeah.
And
well, think about if you would have stayed, the chip that you would have had on your shoulder to be seen as the kid, but yet he just guilt tripped you to stay to the extent that if you don't, it's going to crumble. So you don't get the credit for being there, of propping it up, but you always have to be the kid in the room. And a lot of guys, girls in that scenario ends up developing a large chip on their shoulder. I've seen that firsthand, people that I've dealt with in the past years. And it's hard to let go of that, especially if the father doesn't do his part to help mitigate that feeling or heal that scenario. When you get into that and people always look at you as less than, or it was given to you, when you're really working just as hard as anyone else, they just assume nepotism. That's a tough place to be in.
And I think that's where I didn't want to be. I didn't want to feel like it was given to me.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because then you're never your own person.
Sure.
And I didn't know what being my own person was, but now I like it, and I would have missed it. But, you don't know. And so, again, you evolve. And all of a sudden, he pushed me. So what did I do?
There it is.
I then thought, after I quit, what am I going to do? So I opened up, I don't know if you know what this is, but a newspaper, and it has something called Help Wanted ads in there, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up finding a job in real estate development. I was the leasing agent for commercial office space that a developer had quite a few properties.
Is this in Philly?
In Philly.
Okay. Like downtown area?
Yeah, Center City, Philadelphia. Our corporate offices were at 15th and Walnut Street, so right near Rittenhouse Square. Huh. Beautiful buildings. They were also getting involved with one of the first condominiums, but residential condominiums in Society Hill, Philadelphia. I helped bring in, when I ended up working with them, the largest commissioned artwork ever in the city of Philadelphia was brought from, we had it commissioned in Florida, brought up 95. They closed the roads down, and it's still, a huge structure. I learned about construction work, which I've never known anything. And
you were just learning as you were right there on the job,
right,
on the fly.
I think the greatest thing I ever learned was I was a leasing agent for a developer. And somebody came in with their client, a broker, and they wanted to see some space. So I take him into one of the spaces, and I am new, I am green, and I have no idea. But you know what? That's what's great about life, is you just end up going in there and doing it. And somebody went, so this is a nice office. What size is it? And they looked up and they went, oh, these are 2x2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, whatever, right? I went, there's the keys to the kingdom. And I learned the commercial real estate business by watching other people. And I ended up growing in that business very quickly because I loved it. I loved sales. I loved meeting
and you had the
people.
ability to learn on the fly. I think that was one of your biggest assets is you're not afraid to step into an arena that you're going to have to learn and you don't already know everything, but then you have the ability to learn quickly and ask questions, not be embarrassed to ask questions. That was something I learned early on when I was at the financial firm that I was at, was if you ever pretended like you knew something that you didn't, eventually it would lead to you being put on the spot and you would get exposed and then you'd be in a really, really bad place. And so learning to be able to be humble enough to look at someone and say, I don't know the answer, but I'll do my part to figure it out, or I'll go look into that. I'll find out for you. Like, don't put yourself in a position now where you're going to end up getting in a hot seat because you tried to impress or mitigate for being embarrassed or something like that. And there's a way to do it too, instead of just going, I don't know, like communicate, learning to communicate through it as you learn on the fly and ask intelligent questions and really pay attention and listen to what someone has to say. How often do you have a conversation with someone today that they're not listening to a damn thing you're saying? You can even watch their mouth begin to move as they're getting ready to say next what they just can't wait to get out of their mouth when you stop talking. And that's become so prevalent today. And it makes the depth of a relationship more shallow, but it also, for someone that's trying to learn or someone that's new to an environment, it does them a disadvantage. Like, think of if when you're in the environments that you are in and you're learning on the fly, like, if you don't have someone that's willing to explain things to you or actually listen to you and understand you, someone that's hungry and someone who's willing to pay their dues, it makes that process that much more difficult. And so I think a lot of times today, the younger generation gets blamed for a short attention span because, and let's be honest, with TikTok and social media, Instagrams, Reels, like everything is very quick and short attention span. But the attention span of the older generations has been shortening as well. And you also see where a young person is trying to talk to an older person and that person might not be giving them the time that they need to be able to develop through a process like that. So thankfully, along the way, you had people that were willing to teach you the necessary skills for you to thrive like you ended up thriving, as you said.
I wish I could say the people taught me the skills.
They didn't.
They didn't teach me the skills.
So how'd you learn?
Survival. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right?
Yeah, I wish it was that simple.
And you know what? You touched on it. What? That was the keys to my kingdom, baby.
You can count 2x4s. Huh?
That's it, 2x2s, not even 2x4s. I'm not sure. I'm not any good with a hammer. Believe me.
Those are big denominations.
Yeah, right. So, but no, I think it was And you said it. People go and they give answers that really aren't qualified answers because they're scared that they have to give an answer. Instead, I really found that I needed to find the answers and find the way to get it. When somebody says, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. When someone says, I want a corner office and it needs to be this and this and this, so then you put it together. You drive your success. You don't wait for other people to drive it for you. And I think, what do? You then come back to them and you show them what you can do, and you then push the conversation.
Proactive.
And it's so important when you say, I don't know the answer to that, but I can get it for you. I was once trying to lease a building. It was 25,000 square foot, 2-story building, and Waste Management came walking into my offices and they wanted to see the building. And so I took them for a site visit across to I was in one building, we were walking to the other, and there was a fire hydrant in the middle of the sidewalk. And we were walking and we had a split because fire hydrant. And I'm thinking to myself, what? In fact, I didn't think to myself. I said, what the hell is this thing doing in the middle of the sidewalk? I said, that won't be here for long. Mm-hmm. They see the building, they leave. There's no follow-up at all. And finally, I call them up and the broker says to me, you're number one on their list to rent the space. He said, do you want to know why? He said, they did an unannounced site visit and they were watching your people jackhammering the fire hydrant and moving it to where it should have been. They said, and that's who we wanted to be with. That's all you have to do in life, is just do what you need to do. And what you say, do it. I mean, just perform. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a religious guy, but do unto others, you'd like others to do unto you. My God, it's a basic.
You're the most religious, non-religious person I've ever met.
You said that to me.
Uh-huh. So how did you get from real estate then to starting your company?
Well, I kind of got screwed. And by the way, my life is about a bunch of holes that I've had to, pitfalls.
Pivots.
It's a good way of putting it. It was like, holy shit. So I went on vacation. My parents were living in Florida and they wanted to see my children. They were young. And so we all went down over Christmas, and I came back and went to the 38-acre office campus that I was doing the leasing for. And there was the bank taking over the buildings because none of the mortgage payments were done. And the 3 other partners that I, quote, loved and told me that this was going to make us a future. The main partner was stealing money and funneling it out of the business. And I was poor, naive guy that just thought, if you do the right job, you're going to succeed in life. Mm-hmm. And whammo, you get that. Not only do you get that, but then the bank comes running after you because you're a good guy. You signed personal guarantees. So all these things in life taught me, every one of these mistakes or these pitfalls, whatever you want to call them, what do you call pivots? It creates who you are. And it builds character. I mean, either you're going to go and run away and wither and, die, or you're going to get stronger.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'll build character if you allow it to. It's either that or it's going to put you in a hole that you just crumble in and don't want to come out of.
I couldn't fail.
No.
You can't fail. You got a wife and 2 kids up there.
And then you're just learning instead of failing.
Right.
It was just a setback. You're not failing.
Right. I don't think I would have been able to vocally say that to you. And knew that I was doing that. Yeah. But there was no other solution, Yeah. So then from real estate, that's why I said there's no path in life. And, people that go to college and say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, they're lucky. They know what they want. There's a career path for them. But for people who are out there and really don't know what they want, they feel, first of all, very lonely, that they think that they're the only ones that don't have a clue as to what their career should be.
How often do you see that? A lot of these young guys you work with, that's very congruent. A lot of them feel that way.
That's right. And you know what?
Right now.
I get it.
Yeah.
And when you say to somebody, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Life's path has a way of going where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. Just keep going. Mm-hmm. And so from there, I had somebody who was in the medical equipment business who knew that I could sell. Mm-hmm. But not only did I sell, and I want to quantify that, you have to back up what you sell. And that was the difference between the old tin salesman, door-to-door siding salesman that I saw as a child to, being who you wanted to be. And I wanted to be recognized as somebody that was not just the quick salesman. I was somebody that was going to back it up, and it was something, if they're going to buy it, they're going to be buying quality. So I ended up working with this medical equipment company, and long story short, another one of those pitfalls. And he was not doing things properly, and I needed to leave because you had to make a decision. And the decision was, were you going to do things the right way, or whether you're going to work the system? And plenty of people make the decision they want to do that. That wasn't for me.
Yeah. Before you didn't know. But once you knew, and you had a decision to make. Yeah.
I called it the sweaty armpits.
I always have sweaty armpits. I wake up with sweaty armpits.
I said to my boss at that time, I said to him, listen, he goes, how do you know this is going on? I said, it's sweaty armpits, man. I said, and you will find out, because the guy that they're going to go after is going to come after you and wear a wire and take you down. And I don't know what made me say it. And 6 months later, that's exactly what happened.
Whoa.
And so not only was I now thinking I had a new career, I was in the middle of a grand jury investigation.
Oh my God.
Where they were running after these guys.
Wow.
And I then decided I'm leaving and opening up my own business. My father used to say to me, so when you're tired of getting fucked, let me know. I say that to my children, said that to my children. And unfortunately in this world, a lot of people do get fucked working for people. Sometimes you find the right people that understand that you embrace your employees, because you can't do it without them.
Right.
And I just couldn't believe that people that were screwing me were the people that were enjoying the benefits of me bringing in the sales of the business. I was making the business grow. Yeah. Why would you then do this to somebody that was instrumental in making you successful?
Because you and I couldn't sleep at night doing something like that.
Right.
But yet they slept soundly. It's just, yeah.
You want to hear the excuse?
Let's hear it.
So, yeah, I went to jail, they say. I want to make sure they know it's not me that went to jail. And I paid a $2 million fine. But I made $5.
Still made up.
So it was worth the year. Good for you. That wasn't good for me.
No, absolutely.
So I was tired of getting fucked. I learned from my lessons. I didn't have a partner again. And I also paid off the debt that I was stuck with.
Yeah.
Because my partner took the monies from the construction loans to build new buildings in our complex and funneled it to himself personally. And today, if you look him up, he's wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Wow. And
they finally found him. So as we were talking about earlier, sometimes you wait a long time for what goes around comes around, but you don't see. And my father said to me, why are you not more angry? And why are you not running after him? And why are you not suing him? I don't sue people. It's negative energy. It's not going to do me any good. I'm going to be focused for a full day on bullshit versus going out and figuring out what can I do to survive.
Sure.
So I went and I left this gentleman in the medical equipment business. And what was nice was the manufacturers of the products that I put out came to me and said, where did you go? And I couldn't tell them what was going on. And I just told them I couldn't work there anymore. And they really enjoyed what I did for them.
Sure.
And they, in essence, put me in business. I had no money. I had a father that was so tough that I could never go to him and ask for money, because to me that was being a failure. And these manufacturers said, listen, we'll supply you with product. You go out and sell it. When you can afford to pay us, pay us.
Wow, what a deal.
What a deal. And one day my wife called me and said, somebody just rang our doorbell and asked me where the loading dock was. She said, what's
inventory showing up, baby. Yeah, right.
I said, just tell them to leave the boxes at the bottom of the driveway.
Yeah.
And her and my 5-year-old son at that time brought the boxes into my garage, and that began my business.
That just I had a time when one of our shipments for Lifted showed up at our neighbor's front door at 9:00 at night. And out in the desert, most of those neighborhoods, as you know, like there's not much light. So I'm walking back and forth from their front door to our front door, box by box, hoping this guy doesn't open his front door with a shotgun, wondering who the hell's at my front door at 9 o'clock at night and why is he taking my packages? But yeah, no loading dock there.
No loading dock.
I was the human forklift.
But I think that it's important. You've done it. I've done it.
Yeah.
Plenty of people done it. I'm not sure the newer generation, or the younger generation. Terrible word, entitlement. I think that as a parent of two boys, one's 40, one's 35, both are in their own businesses, but more of the people in the younger generation believe that they should walk in and they should have a cushy job and the money should be huge and they should have quality of life, and that means they can't work past 5 o'clock. I'm not from that background or that.
Work-life balance is what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Where do you think that sense of entitlement comes from?
Mom and dad feeling so badly for the things that they didn't have in life that they overextended themselves with the kids, and you shouldn't have to worry about it. And so when you're used to driving a BMW at 17 and now you're 25 and you have to buy your own car and it's not a BMW, that's an issue. And I was a product of that mistake also, but we do it because you love your kids and you think you're doing the best thing. And what you have to learn is nothing comes on a silver platter. Go out there and find that platter first and then build it. So
I'm kind of jumping around a little bit based on what you just... No, you're not. Don't be sorry. This is perfect. You actually beat me to one of my questions. So what advice do you give the parents and the children in that scenario to try to counter that movement that you're seeing of entitlement? What needs to be done? I know you said go find that platter and build it, but like from, a tangible, like, whether it's skill set that needs to be developed or more so probably a perspective that needs to be rooted first and then you develop the skill set around it. What does that perspective look like?
Hunger.
And if they're not in a place where the hunger is legitimate because the parents or whoever is the family's well off, how do you foster a sense of hunger without it being an actual scenario where, there is options there and they're not,
I don't think I'd be talking to the person who is having a great time with the gravy boat and is enjoying it and is not looking for any answers. I think it's the people who are floundering and they were used to all of this and now they're supposed to figure out how they're going to do it on their own. And they need to have some guidance. And sometimes, and there's many different scenarios in that, and that's very simple, is that many people haven't had the story that I had, and therefore they don't have the background. If their father came out and he was an engineer and all he did was, he was an engineer, worked for a company all his life, he wouldn't understand how to go out there in the world. What are the stumbling blocks? How do you get to the next level? So those are things that I think I can bring to somebody and be able to give them. I think it's great. See, everyone sees. So now, of course, I built this business. I became fairly successful in doing so. And so now people see you and you're driving the nice car and you're living it in the nice house. And so they perceive that you've always had that.
Sure.
So when you sit back and you tell them a little bit of your story, I think it gives them the confidence of knowing that they don't need to have all the answers. They need to just go out and take it one step at a time, one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, but I think when they don't have all the answers, the fear of other people, just like coming back to answering the question, if you don't know, say, truthfully, I don't know, but I'll go find out. Today, the fear of someone thinking you don't know it all or being exposed as an impersonator or a fraud keeps them stuck because they're not willing to be humiliated, which isn't being humiliated for people to know you don't actually know everything you portray to know. Let people know you don't know and go learn. Right. Before we get into this next section with your company, I want to go back to the question I asked you about what a parent could do, what advice you would give them or the kid. I will be transparent and humble myself right now because at my expense, if this is something that could help somebody, I'll be the one that bears that right now. So I was that kid that was given really nice cars at a very young age. And I did get a lot of flack for it. I had different people saying things to me, to my parents, And my response or my rebuttal to that was, well, it depends on how the kid handles it. And what I meant by that was if the kid was appreciative, I was referring to myself. If the kid was appreciative, if he didn't take it for granted, and he didn't see it as something he was entitled to, then if he had the right mind frame with it, then it wasn't necessarily going to be a bad thing. Okay? But here's the part now that I'm seeing years down the road where I was wrong. Yes, I could handle it well, but what it did is exactly what you said. It set my floor, my first car's higher than most people's ceiling that they've ever had in their whole life. And I didn't even realize it. I was like, well, I'm handling it right and I'm grateful, but I didn't realize that that's what I had gotten used to already. And so for the rest of my life, I was going to feel like I needed to keep up with what I've always had. Otherwise, I was going to be behind where I was at as a teenager. I've had to really work through that and let go of that being part of my identity or my image that he's always the guy with the nice car. And at some points it was, he's the guy with a nice car that doesn't deserve it. And then there was a phase of my life where he was the guy with the even nicer car who now does deserve it because of what he's accomplished or whatever. But then there's the pivot points, right? And there's low points where having that nice car out there doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I felt like I still needed to because I had to maintain who I'd always been because I felt like it was a part of me and it's what others expected. And it was hard for me to let that go. It was hard for me to let that go. So I think the advice that I would give parents or myself or whoever now as a parent would be, if you are in a blessed scenario where you have the ability to give your kids a car like that, probably doesn't make sense. There's a middle ground to give them something that's safe and reliable. If you have the ability to give your kids something safe and reliable, I still think they don't need to be in a beater. They don't need to be in something that's going to break down in the middle of the intersection and then your 16-year-old daughter's stranded somewhere you don't want her stranded, you know? Like if you can give them something that's reasonable and is safe and is dependable, but it doesn't need to be fancy and flashy, there's a middle ground. But also as part of that is the process of which they feel grateful that they have what they've been given, that there's responsibility that comes with it, that they know that's not their car that they're entitled to, that when they get grounded, they can say, that's mine. No, that's still my car. You're given the gift, the benefit to use it. And if you then buy it and work your way to buy it, you know, there's a million different ways to work it. But my point is to manufacture, and I say manufacture because if the scenario is that the family is cash flush, and you're basically making a fake scenario where giving a kid a less than car than what the family can afford, it still makes sense. And create the environment for that child to be able to learn, as you said, what it's like to build towards something, to earn something. And some kids, that might not even matter to them. They don't care what car they have. They might not ever car. Some people just aren't car. But that was something that, like, that's one of my things. I love cars. I love automobiles. I could tell you pretty much anything and everything about anyone you want to bring up. I'm just a nerd about it. And so I didn't even realize how much it had become a part of my identity. And that's something that I had to let go of and just say, hey, it's a means of transportation. And in certain times of life, it makes sense to have the ones that you can have fun with and enjoy. And then other times, you got to be willing to put other things first.
That's right.
Especially when you have a family. The gratification that I get out of putting my family first is far greater, far more than any gratification I've ever gotten getting into one of my cars.
And I think a lot of people, you separate them. And I think people look at them as one. Like they still want the car, but they also want everything else with it. And sometimes it works. I don't want to say it was work. I did the same thing. My kids were 17. They were handed keys to brand new cars. And I thought this is fine because my kids are grounded. And they're fine with it. I mean, look, we've had every family has their stuff. But no, they understand. And now they're growing in their businesses and such. But it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just keeping people. I think that it's not only the car. It's also the. I don't want to say they don't want to work, but it's work used to be a priority when you woke up on Monday morning, look, my family was always number one. But when I woke up on Monday morning, work was number one. I needed to get to the office because I needed to make money, because it was my job to bring that money home to my family. And if I hear about quality of life anymore, it drives me crazy. The quality of life is only if you can bring home what you want to bring home. It doesn't mean you need to bring home $1 million, $2 million. You can bring home
relative.
Whatever you want to do that makes you happy.
It's relative.
But you got to do it. And so if someone sends you, I mean, I really retired before the internet was really out there, I hate to say. And that's only 18 years ago. I mean, I retired.
It's also a flex, too, that you retired that young. So.
Yeah, which is great.
It goes both ways.
Right. At 10 o'clock at night when I get emails from people, what's the big deal? I'm watching a TV show. I take 30 seconds. I answer the email. It's off and I do it for myself.
Yeah.
And you hear people bitching that they don't do it and that they don't need to go in the office. They do need to. Well, I feel they need to go into.
Well, there's a lot of studies coming out now that it shows that after COVID, so many people move to working from home, and you're seeing what that's doing to the commercial real estate from an office space standpoint. It's crazy.
I just think creativity and knowledge. You know, I said that I learn from other people.
Yeah, but it's also
if you don't have them in an office with you, you can't learn from anybody.
Studies are showing that the overall happiness level has actually diminished. They thought it would go up from getting to stay home and have that balance that you're talking about, but it's actually diminished. There's something to facing something that you don't want to do that's perceived as hard and getting yourself to do it consistently that brings gratification and happiness.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so they thought it was going to go up, but the inverse actually took place. Before we move on I want to talk through a little bit more of your company. You mentioned something when I asked you about younger David, about being insecure. I asked about the phase when you were going to leave your father, how you felt about yourself at that point. You felt a little bit better after that conversation because you faced the giant. But yet, overall, you still probably would consider yourself as insecure and in that phase still. All right. So now you've built and sold a very successful company from nothing. You've built yourself into best shape of your life. You look incredible. I see you get compliments all the time, and that's been because of the consistency and the work you've put in. You've provided for, loved on, and raised a beautiful family. How does that make you feel now?
Like a superstar. Bad word. It's really.
It's fine. That's a great word. I asked you.
I feel proud, happy, all the good things. I mean, and you still have your struggles, but it's nice. It's nice to feel good. It's also nice about yourself. And why do I feel that way? Because my children, I've been able to lead them on a path and watch them grow and learn enough to let go of them and let them, prosper, flourish, and be them. Mm-hmm. I think I'm a pretty tough guy, so that's pretty good if I really did that. Mm-hmm. And I'm still happy that I have a wife that's proud of me and looks to me to be her man.
And her entertainment.
Yeah. And I like to enjoy life. And by the way, the reason I work out the way, and that's a whole different story, I never worked out a day in my life until I turned 41, as you know.
Yeah.
And I always said, I don't know if I ever told you, I'd say I was lying in bed, my wife would get up and she'd run 6 miles every morning and then go to the gym. And I'd be lying in bed and I thought, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. It's either going to be that red convertible car or I better get my ass out and get to the gym. And I just got the bug. And I loved seeing the results. Mm-hmm. And you know why I found you was because I was moving to Phoenix. And I went, that guy looks great. And that's how I want to look. And don't you want to emulate somebody who's you see as successful?
Yeah. That's why we love the gym so much, is because what you put in is what you get out. There's not very many things in life that actually work that way.
But they should.
They should.
See, if you invest your time on the business side, you should see your ROI. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's an ROI.
Yeah.
And also with your wife and your family. Same thing. So you need to come home at night, as you now know, with your 2 little ones, and you're tired as hell, and you say to yourself, shit, I got to go sit on that floor and play. But guess what you do? You sit on that floor and you play. Mm-hmm. Because that's what you need to do.
That's right.
And we just have to be accountable. in every facet.
I think your confidence, yes, you've had big wins and successes, but I think your confidence more so comes from paying your dues, from facing the hard things consistently and not letting those pivots or downfalls break you. You've always risen to the occasion and you've kept pushing forward. And so you know that even after a big win, a lot of people actually get even more anxious because they're now afraid to lose it, right? You're not afraid because if you do face another pivot or you do face another challenge, you know you're not going to break. You have your track record to look at. And it's been really cool to see now how you're sharing that with the young guys that you mentor. And before we get there, I got to ask two things. Yep. Number one, I want a serious story because I think you're one of the most ethical guys I've ever met. You, and especially in a business like you already described when you first got into the medical device side of things, the fraud that took place in there. So other than not wanting to go to jail, give me an example of why your ethics meant so much to you and a story that took place while you were running your business that demonstrated them.
Well, the first thing I think, and I say this to people, you lose your integrity once. And it's hard sometimes to not compromise yourself in order to get a big win, which gives you your ego-filled great, but you also have to realize if you're doing the right thing. I don't know. You say to me, you had once said to me, I don't know, you said I'm the most religious. One day you said to me, you're the most God-fearing guy, non-God-fearing guy you're the most God-fearing, non-God-fearing guy I ever knew.
Yeah.
And I just believe it's about integrity. It's about knowing who you want to be. You have to understand that I live back in New Jersey, a melting pot of highly successful middle to upper middle class people. And so it was a tough environment to live in. And I was the salesman. And other people had career paths that were much greater than mine. Mm-hmm. And everyone looked at me, and I believed that they looked at me and perceived me as being that unethical guy. And I didn't like being perceived that way, even though maybe they didn't, but I thought they did. And so it made me go the other way. And I found that I became stronger being ethical and running a business the right way. My business grew exponentially because I didn't rip off the system. Crazy. But all of a sudden, the right people started to gravitate towards me. Mm-hmm. And I also then had so many experiences with people that didn't live that way and realized, well, first of all, I couldn't believe that they really did the things they did. And why would you want to do that? What was going to make your life any better? Right. And I guess that what I did, which was, again, not thoughtful, just the way I woke up each day and did it, was the right formula for me. And that's what made me more powerful. And, the more successful I became in not just business and not just money, but as a person, it made me stronger.
Sure. And so, you're proud of what you saw in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a
lot of work still, but yeah.
Yeah, of course, all of us. But I think there's a lot of people that have, whether it's the monetary success or they're very good looking or it's a combination of all the above, and they look in the mirror and you would think everybody else thinks that when that person looks in the mirror, they have to be so proud of what they see, but they're not. They're actually ashamed or insecure about it. And then you could have somebody that world would look at and be like, there's no way when they look in the mirror that they feel good about themselves, but yet they do. And it's because they're happy with themselves and the decision. They can live with the decisions that they've made. They can be proud of the decisions that they've made. And
I think they're more proud of the end result, and so they just discount what they did.
Maybe.
And they make
I don't think so, though, because if you got the end result, if you got all the money, but you didn't do it ethically, you wouldn't have been proud of what you saw in the mirror.
That may be me, but I'm not
I'm talking about just each person in specifically.
I think they would be.
There's some people that would be.
Because you know why? They would rationalize the fact that they really didn't do it wrong, or that asshole really deserved to be fucked. Mm-hmm. So therefore, people do that every day. They justify. They justify.
But they know they're justifying at some point.
Do you think so? I mean, I know I do. I talk to myself, and I know when I'm fucking with myself.
Me too. Yeah. But you and I have that self-awareness, and if we know that we're doing that with ourselves, we're not truly at peace. We're not truly gratified by it. There's the people that have done it long enough that they start to drink their own Kool-Aid and they believe their own narrative and it becomes their own reality. Right. They can't even sit in truth. Truth no longer has meaning to them because truth is whatever they make it to be. And I think that's why our world's in the trouble that it is. And you hear that thing, that's your truth.
Yeah. Well, garbage. It's funny because some of the kids that I work with, most of them when I'm working with them, they're open to hearing it and hearing the hard stuff and doing the hard stuff. And some are just not there, as quickly. And some of them will say they may have to have cleaned up their resume or gone to research something. And a week later we'll get on the phone and they'll go, yo man, listen, I'm really sorry, but I was really busy this week and the shit hit the fan here and this and there. And, so I didn't get anything done. And you know how it is. And they're waiting for you to acknowledge that it's okay that they didn't do it. Yeah. And I just get silent and I say, listen, I said, everybody else would say, yo, man, I get it. Next week will be another week. I hope it's better. And they're going to hang up the phone because they don't really care about you. But I want you to know something. You fucked up. You didn't do it. You're buying your own story. And that's not going to get you anywhere. And I have a really good success rate with that. Yeah. Because they're not used to hearing those things. And you know what? Yeah. If they're
not used to hearing the truth, the actual truth, the cold hard truth.
Somebody said
the truth will set you free.
Up. You fucked up, man. Yeah. Tomorrow, wake up and do something different. Yeah. The old, what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Expecting a different result.
That's right. Not happening. And people like to be victims also. And they feed on that.
Yeah. They'll tell you they don't want someone to feel sorry for them, but they're still the way that they handle themselves and they buy into that victim mentality they do.
Right.
I think they're just looking for a break or an excuse as to why they're not doing what they should be doing.
It's all rationalizing why they're not doing it. Yeah. Exactly. Or why the world is so bad and why it's so rough for them. And it must be different for them than it is for me. Mm-hmm. I get up every day and have to think about my trainer, and so you have a great life, but they don't know about the walls that are crumbling in my life that nobody has any,
right.
They don't need to know.
Yeah.
Or how I'm hurting.
Yes.
And you have to put all those things in balance, but one doesn't emphasize the other. It's just you've got to keep them all in balance. Life's about juggling a lot of balls.
Straight from his mouth. All right.
From that, you'll keep going.
Can you think of one story that just sticks out to you that would be a funny story during when you had your company before we move on?
My own company?
Yeah. You've told me a few, but I'll let you, if you think of anything.
Oh, I've had so many.
Yeah, you've had a bunch.
And I played with players that were so above me in business, and it was just a lot of fun. But I think the one funny story is when I first opened up my business, it was around Thanksgiving. And mine was a mail order medical supply. So patient was sick at home. They would either call or their nurse would call, and the supplies would be picked and packed from my warehouse, specific for what they needed, and sent to their home. So the phone was starting to ring when I started my business, and all of a sudden, about 4 weeks later, it was dead silent. I mean, it was quiet. It was scary. And I was like, what the hell's going on? So in those days, we only had bag phones. So I left the office and I took my bag phone with me and I called in because I thought the phone lines were dead. I mean, it was like, holy cow. And all of a sudden someone answered. I went, okay, that wasn't it. I'll give you another one. So this was the struggles. I mean, now you laugh. I mean, how do you control your destiny? So I was dying and I needed some business and I went to a home care agency and they said, we're going to send over all our 300 patients to you. And all I saw were dollar signs. I thought, this is great, man. And all of a sudden they said, we'll have it to you in a week because they have to make copies of their face sheets, which is for a patient, their demographics and their insurance and what's wrong with them and things like that. And then once we would get that paperwork, we could start supplying them. So a week goes by, nothing comes to me. 2 weeks go by, nothing comes to me. And all of a sudden I said, and there was always an excuse. This person was out and therefore we were really busy. No one could make the photocopies. And I'm saying, I just need 300 photocopies, man. Or what do we call them these days? I don't think it's photocopies anymore. Everybody just dated myself. And so finally I called them up and I said, listen, My appointment just canceled. I said, and so I'm free. How about if I come over and I'll make those copies for you, right? Suit and tie in there, making photocopy. And all I kept saying to myself was billing.
Yep.
Billing.
Yep.
Billing.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a funny story because it's like you just had to figure out something to control yourself. But it also talks about what you do in order to, like, instead of just bitching and moaning that the person didn't do it, I came up with, I mean, for me, it was either sink or swim. I had to figure out something. So this is how you do it.
You doing that, when you just said, I was in a suit and tie doing that, it just brought me this flashback of, I remember one time when I was at this financial firm, my boss walked in and I had a big meeting I was prepping for in a couple hours that I was pitching this big deal to, like a 9-figure deal. And I'm wearing a full suit and it's like 110 out here in summer. Right. And he goes, I know you got your meeting at 1, but I want you to go to my house and you're going to clean up the dog shit and you better be back here and be ready for your meeting at 1. And I had to go to his house and clean up dog shit wearing a suit. And I remember just the whole time just talking to myself in my head, this is going to be worth it. This is going to be worth it. This is going to be worth it. It really wasn't worth it.
Let me tell you this one. This is who I don't want to be. This is who I don't want to be. This is who I. What do you mean clean up your dog shit? Go clean up your own dog shit.
I got stories for days on that stuff.
Oh, God. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was an interesting time for me, for sure. Learned a lot. Very humbling. I'm thankful for the lessons I learned. I remember when I was doing that, before that, I'd been digging holes on a commercial job site for a landscaping company. They would put me, like in a parking lot, they have the little islands in between the parking spots. Usually there's a tree there and stuff.
I've taken down a few of those.
See?
I'm in my RV.
They made me take a pickaxe and underneath that layer of mulch and dirt, there would still be concrete. And I'd have to break through that concrete and dig a hole down so we could drop the trees down. And, it's 100 and something degrees. I'm out in the middle and I'm breaking concrete with that thing all day. My hands are just beat to hell and everything. And then when I was in my suit doing that stuff that I didn't want to do, I'd always tell myself, at least you're not in that hole breaking that concrete and you're making a little bit more money than you were making then. And it just kept me going. So that was a tough job, but it was worth it in that sense. It rooted me. So
you did what you needed to do.
That's right. Now that you're on the latter side of building and selling a company and the things that you've accomplished, and you mentor a lot of these young men, what does compel you to do that? Why do you work with these young guys?
I love giving back. I love taking part of this and the insight and the experience. And I also think that's so valuable to give because it can help somebody so tremendously. And the other part is the part where they know that they're not the only ones that hit these roadblocks. And I think that really is the biggest piece, that people understand that life is not easy for anybody. Everyone takes a different path, but for most people, I should say, it's not easy. And therefore, they shouldn't look at themselves and be embarrassed or think it's not something they can handle. Everyone's got something. So how do we now take this and attack it? And that's why I like to do it.
What I'm hearing you saying is you're willing to remove the veil of perfection that these young guys look at you with to an extent. And you're willing to humble yourself and allow them to relate with you in your pain points. And then now they know that they can relate with you. They know this guy understands. And they see your success and that you understand, and now they'll listen.
Got to be a real human being.
Yeah.
And there's no human being that only has a perfect side.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of mess. And how you handle it is different.
So your ability to speak the truth into them, where you tell them carte blanche, hey, you fucked up. Like, I don't want to, like, you have the empathy to sit in it and understand, but still speak the hard truth to them. I think a lot of time the person that's willing to speak the hard truth, they don't have a lot of empathy. Like there's and even saying that out loud, like you would think being able to speak the hard truth to someone means that because you love them, you're willing to have an uncomfortable, hard conversation. And that's how you do it, which is effective.
Right.
Then there's the person that's just hard all the time, and you always get the hard truth without any empathy. And a lot of times that tactic, or that is not a very, you talk back with your dad's business. He just would have been like just hard on that person all the time. And they're either going to acquiesce to that fear tactic, or they're going to run and they're going to crumble under it. So that's really cool that you're willing to do it that way, and that's what makes you so effective with them. And I've seen the changes you've made in a lot of these guys' life. It's really awesome.
I'm sure I told you the story. I met a guy in the gym, and I asked him what he did, and he told me he was in the moving business, and he has a wife and a brand new baby, and he tells me he had just quit. And I looked at him, and I knew him maybe 3 minutes, and I said, "You can't quit. You have a wife and a child. That's not what you do." So, of course, he had already quit. And I said, "So what do you want to do?" "So what does everyone want to do?" "I want to go into my own business. I want to own my own moving company. But," and I will always hear the but. And the but is, "But I don't have the money to buy a truck." So this was their obstacle in life. And so therefore they were going to say to whomever they could talk to, "Wanted to open up my own moving company, but I didn't have a truck."
Yep.
And I said to him, "When you're interested in talking about how maybe you can do it rather than how you can't do it, here's my number."
Yeah.
And he came and he started to meet with me. And finally I said to him, and I think you may remember the story.
I do.
And he said, "I don't have a truck." And I knew one thing: I don't give money. I give my time and I give my mind and direction. And I said to him, and I think he thought, "This guy's going to give me money. This is great." And he came over and I said to him, "So if you were moving yourself out of your apartment, what would you do?"
Rent a truck.
See, the neatest thing is that when you have an obstacle, you just have to figure out and throw as much shit up against the wall as you can possibly do. Because the answer is that there is no answer that you can't do it. You can. You just have to figure out how. And finally I said to him, "Well, what would you do?" He said, "Well, I'd rent a U-Haul." I said, "So when you get an order for a move, why don't you rent a U-Haul?" And just the light bulb went off. I said, "But not just U-Haul. Because more importantly," and see, this is where I think you add insight, is the least expensive. My mother taught me you never use the word cheap. The least expensive, I still think of that. And she's dead probably 14 years now. But the least expensive may not be the best. Why? Because it also carries insurance. And as a businessman, you have to think of the insurance side. This kid would never have thought of that. And so I made him put together an Excel spreadsheet. I made him go to every one of these rental places. And we picked the company that gave him the best insurance along with the most aggressive pricing. And then I said, "Now, how are you marketing it?" And he said, "Well, I'm putting up flyers in the apartment buildings." I said, "You and everybody else. You need to differentiate yourself. Let's pick a market. Let's figure out something. Who would move more? First of all, a move is tough. Someone doesn't move every week, every year. So you need someone that's going to have multiple uses." And we came up with senior living because people are getting older. He lives in Arizona. You go from, independent living to assisted living to nursing, and they need to be packed up by a good guy who cares about these people. And I started to package him that way and to think that way. And so finally, and he's coming to me and he's starting to get a little bit of business, but he had a love for vinyl, for records. And I started to realize he was diverting. And so I keep pulling him back. I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, I've been going to the vinyl store rather than going and knocking on doors, in essence." I said, "You go to Dunkin' Donuts and you buy a dozen donuts, put them in different bags, and you go in and you go visit people." And I said to him, "And you keep knocking on those doors because those people are going to love you for what you're doing." The next day I got pictures of Dunkin' Donuts and him going.
Cool.
Well, I'll give you the end of the story, which is great. He picked up and moved to New Hampshire, which is where his family is from, and took Move You, which is the name of his company, from here to New Hampshire. He just bought his own trucks. And there are two of them were on Instagram. So I sent him a DM and I said, "I'm really proud of you. Look what you've done." And he said to me, "I'll never forget about you." He said, "But what I really never will forget is that you asked me one day if I was a quitter." And I went, "Holy shit, I can't believe I really said that to this kid." But I was trying to motivate him, right? And he obviously never forget. He said, "You didn't know me and you took the time out to do it." You know how wealthy you feel doing that? You don't need the cash for that. You need to feel that's a wealth that you've given back to somebody that will remember me, that is living in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. I told me I just wanted to come and read the eulogy at my funeral. No, I'm kidding. So those are some of the things that I get off on. I enjoy.
Yeah, from his perspective, what it means for someone who has no obligation to care about you, but goes out of the way and shows that they do. It means so much. And thinking from your side, when I asked you the question about the people that spent time to teach you the real estate business, and you said no one really did. So you didn't get that. You didn't get that from your father in the way that you wanted. No. You didn't really ever get it in the way that you looked for it.
No one ever mentored me.
And I think that's a big reason why now you do it for others, is because you didn't get it.
They just tried to fuck me. They thought they would utilize my expertise, my ability to. I was good in sales. I was good in operations, but they didn't appreciate me. I was a doormat. And I realized it. And so when I built my business, I said, I'm never going to change the commission program. I mean, it's just a joke in the industry where, you work for a big company, you've got a certain territory and a certain commission structure, you start to do great. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden your territory shrinks, your commission program changes, and this is but you're doing great.
You're doing great. Hang in there.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
If I'm making a ridiculous amount of money, you're making a stupid amount of money. Come on. Mm-hmm. So why are people like that?
Greed.
And so my promise was to myself that when I built my business, I wasn't going to do it by walking on people. And to this day, I could still pick up the phone to all my people and talk to them, and they would have good feelings about it. I was nuts, and I worked hard, and I expected everyone to work as hard. Mm-hmm. But
you were also in the back of the warehouse in your suit and tie filling orders. I know that.
Every night. Every night. You don't go home. My father taught me that.
That's cool.
Okay, so he was in franchising at one point, and you have people that book appointments for the salesmen that are out in the street. So you didn't go home until the appointments were booked. And one day I walked in when I was working for him, and I went, okay, I'm going to go. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. He said, did they book all the appointments? I said, no. He goes, then you're not going anywhere. You either buy them pizza or get on the phone with yourself and help them and get them so they can get out of here earlier. And I never forgot that.
I saw a couple weeks ago, there was a press release about how Elon Musk had slept underneath his desk on the floor, and his office is a glass office that everybody can see, because he wanted his team to not feel like he was some wealthy guy out on an island enjoying things while they were trying to figure out the problem, that he was right there with them. It made me think of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It made me think of you.
But you know what? I think it does go a long way.
It does. It works. You're living proof. What does legacy mean to you?
Well, it means a lot to me. I'll start with that. And legacy is just somebody, when they hear your name after many years, that they say, he was a good guy, and just a good guy. I take everything very seriously, but I take nothing very seriously.
I know what you mean.
And I think that's the legacy I want. When people hear, my mother was a tremendous person, and when people talk about her, you can see them light up and just talk about such nice things. You know what? It goes a long way. Nobody's going to know how much money you made, and it isn't going to matter, because we're all going down 6 feet. Or being burned, whatever you want to do. We're all on the same page again. So that's not what you really want to leave. That's not the legacy you want to leave. It's not a wealth of money, unless you're using your money to give back and do good things. It's really just, I think, being known as just, that's what I want people to know. Good person, willing to do anything. Just don't fuck me. No.
If you could have a billboard, so now that you don't live here anymore, and your neck of the woods so you live in that community with all those people that thought of you as a certain way, as for coming from sales, and you could put a billboard right in the middle of that community that all those people are going to see every single day, other than flipping them off as you just did under the table. What would you want to be on that billboard, but it has your name signed at the bottom so they know it's yours?
Take the time to give back today.
Love it. Instead of sticking it to them, you're just spreading your message.
There's no fuck you.
Good.
No. It's really because I only did it for me. Because people will always think what they're going to think, and who cares? And
even if you're doing something out of your way for someone else, it still can be misunderstood as something different. You know?
Yeah, but you do it for you. You need to sleep at night.
Yeah.
But I really think I really believe that we need to help each other. You know, we touched on it a little bit, which was the world we're living in right now. You know? If we just helped each other a little bit more, we'd be so much
for the
better.
right reasons too, not so that way you can put it on social or someone pats you on the back to give you your little moment of, look what I did to help. Like, I think your heart's in the right place if you're willing to help someone or go out of your way to do something for someone else and serve others, even if no one ever knows about it.
When I finally made some money, I started donating to different programs, charities. And my wife was indignant about this, and that was, she said, it all goes anonymously. I don't want our name all over the place. And I think that says a lot. You know, what are you feeding? You want to give back because, and for me especially, it makes your heart bigger. It makes you feel better. So.
Well, I just want to thank you for this time. And I just want to thank you for all the time that we get to spend together.
You're a good guy.
Thank you.
I enjoy it. And you know what? You know exactly why I do what I do, because you do the same thing.
Thank you.
And, you know, it's really nice to not only have a friend like you, but also someone that challenges me, because we laugh about it because we're doing it for a multitude of crazy reasons. But it's just, you know, how do you want to go through this world? Not only legacy, but how do you want to go through this world? And just keep punching.
And I've so often watched you be willing to put your heart on display. Like, you're willing to be vulnerable or suffer to love someone else well. Not very many people are willing to do that, especially with someone that came up the way you did, that didn't feel like someone was willing to do it for them.
But I think it makes you feel like, I mean, look, you know how many kids I talk to and their parents are, I'm going to say, selfish.
I think it goes one way or the other. There's the person that never got any breaks, and so now they want to give other people a break, or they're like, well, I didn't get any, so you're not getting any either.
Right. Well, hopefully we have more of the people that want to give back. I say to them, these are who your parents are. You're now 40 years old or 30 years old. Get over it. They're not going to change, but learn from it. Learn who you want to be as an adult and who you don't want to be, and institute the change that's affected you so much negatively. And I really try to focus on that, because to sit and think about how bad their past was, and that's the reason that they rationalize that their future is going to be bad or is bad, or their present. It's not that. Go institute change. Control your destiny. You know, my father, so many great things about him and so many things that I really disliked. And again, I think I became stronger because I tried to be a different father to my children, and a different human being to others. And so I think it's so important for you to learn and to push yourself and to change. And I think people don't.
So what you're saying there is, if I'm going to give him full credit or deduct full credit for the things he didn't teach me, I have to be willing to give him full credit for the things that he did.
Oh, yeah. I started to say to you, he used to have a saying, well, two things he said to me, which was interesting. I was buying this house before I got screwed by my real estate partners. And I said, so Dad, this house is a lot of money. Do you think I can afford it? And he said to me, David, I never did anything in my life that I could afford. That's what made me get up in the morning and work harder. It was interesting. Never forgot that. You know, that works for some people.
Some people, yeah.
You know, and his other saying was always, it came from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. What your mind can believe and conceive, you can achieve.
You definitely carried that one on.
And I did. And my children also feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of them because of that. You know, it's like they're pushing and they're trying to make up their own lives. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's it.
So I have one final question.
Uh-oh.
And you can refuse to answer if you want.
Okay.
The reason why, and you brought it up several times, I'll say you're the most God-fearing, non-God-fearing person I know, is I'm sure as a lot of you have watched and listened to this, you've already picked up on the fact that so many of your ethics, your morals, your convictions of how you live your life, they do directly coincide. I mean, they parallel biblical principles almost to a T. But the motivation from the biblical side is to love and honor God. What anchors you to yours? Why? What is it? If it's not God, what is it?
I don't mean this in the wrong way, but I'll say it. It's me.
You.
My character. I once said to somebody, well, because I wasn't brought up religious. Religion wasn't a big part of my life. My parents and I'm Jewish, and my family's Jewish, but we really led with tradition, which we loved, which was family, which is the same in all religions. But I think that you just have to be a good person. And what, I was sorry to say to you that someone said to me, I know what it was. I said, I feel like when I make decisions that someone's sitting right on my shoulder and kind of watching me.
You've said that to me.
Right? I mean, the person was great that said it to me. And they said, would you make the same decisions if you didn't think that person was sitting on your shoulder? Mm-hmm. And I thought, boy, that was a really good question. Mm-hmm. And I hope I would. But I don't think it's only that. I think you just have to decide who you want to be. And I think you don't do it for God. I think God is great for people who need that and want that belief, because it gives you some strength to hold on to when the whole world is falling apart. But God only is giving you the strength to do the things that you should be doing and that you want to do and that you can do. He's just giving you the okay, in my opinion. And so it's really you that's instituting it and doing it and implementing it. So I don't think they're separate and apart. I think that they're really one and the same. I may not say it's God, and I may not say anything of who it is, but I do it because it's who I am.
Can I give my response?
Of course.
Okay. So I'm following you, but you've also developed the ability to not care what other people think. So when you say you're doing it for yourself, it's so, like you've said several times, your ability to look yourself in the mirror and be happy and at peace with what you see because of how you treat other people, regardless of what they think. You know what your motive is. All right. So I'm following you there, and that part of that's beautiful. But where do you think that within you, that matters to you, came from? If you were just randomly out of thin air, if you want to believe in evolution or whatever theory you want to come in that doesn't involve you coming as a creation from God, that instilled this within you, why do you have that when so many others don't? Why do you have something that separates you from an animal or a plant? Like, why do you have this conviction within you to do that if it didn't come from someone that gave that to you?
Well, I'm glad they gave it to me. And I'm not sure. I mean, when you say, why do you keep doing it? I don't do it because so that other people see me differently.
Exactly.
Better.
Agreed.
Although it is nice for people to see you and all of a sudden say, hey, that person isn't who I thought they were. There's
instances, though, that I know of, and I will not reveal them out of respect to you, that you've done things on the behalf of someone else without them even knowing it, and you ever getting the credit, though.
Yeah, because I can or could.
But why?
Why not? I don't know. And by the way, I'm not singular. There's plenty of people out there like that. I'm sitting across from somebody that's like that.
Thank you. Thank you. But whatever good you see to me, that's God. And that's where I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for you. My brokenness is what gets in the way. My flesh, my selfish desires, my insecurities, wanting to compensate from them have gotten in the way in the past, or even times now, of me being able to love and serve others well, because I do want to put myself first. And the only reason why I've been able to grow and heal through that is because the more that I've allowed my relationship with God and to realize that my identity is rooted in the fact that He made me, He gave me certain gifts. And therefore, when others do see good in me, the good they see is not me, it's Him.
Or maybe he gave you the strength to see you who you really are, and you were able to then conquer the parts of you that really you didn't like or that were negative to you or to your persona. And so therefore, again,
couldn't have done it alone though.
Yeah,
tried.
You gave the strength. You gave you the strength.
Yeah.
And you have a strong woman next to you too.
Yeah.
And so it's a I don't think anything is sold, solely that way.
I feel my relationship with my wife though, we have a healthy marriage now, healthier than we did before. And she wouldn't mind me sharing this because it can help others. We've always loved each other very much. We've always been faithful to each other. We put each other first. We tell each other the truth. That was something that we set as a standard. Like we're not going to lie to each other, because without trust, what do we have? And so we had a healthy relationship from that standpoint in the beginning, but we didn't have the relationship that we have now, because at that time, God was not at the center of our relationship. It was our ability to prop each other up, to be there for each other, to hold each other up, but we still fell short. I fell short all the time for her. And it wasn't until we then made God the center of our relationship that our relationship actually grew and got healthier and got better, because now she relies on him instead of me. It's him through me when I get it right. But when I get it wrong, she's not devastated because she still can rely on him, and it's not all on me.
And instead of giving you a response, what I'll say is, it works.
Okay, that's fair.
It works.
That's fair. What did the atheist beaver say when he died and woke up and realized he was in hell?
I don't know what.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn. I was going to say Jesus Christ, but I didn't know if that was inappropriate or not, so I just shut up.
Well, that's a wrap here. Thank you guys for listening and watching today. Thank you for being here and doing this with me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And this is just like tip of the iceberg of the wisdom and the kindness this man has within him, the heart that he has. It's special, and I'm honored and privileged just to display a little bit of it on here and allow you to display it on here a little bit. And we could do this for 30 straight hours. You and I could talk nonstop. So we'll do this again.
I'd rather be lifting a weight while we did.
Yeah, we could do that. We get a pump while we talk.
Yeah, don't make me look terrible.
We need to incorporate that. We're gonna start putting some more dumbbells on here. What's that movie with The Rock, Pain and Gain? We were like having that serious conversation. He's like, hold on, I gotta get a pump. And he just starts hitting it as he's like, oh, yeah, get it. That's a wrap. We'll see you guys in the next episode.